Do, 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 do. Okay, so this we might be live on some social media platforms. Colton, thank you for being on the Ride Boundless podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey Robert, thanks for having me. Doing great. Excited for
Awesome, man.
spring.
Oh man, you're in Denver, right?
Yeah, in Denver and it's heating up and beautiful sunny day.
How's oh, it's been good now? It's been sunny.
Yeah, it's been sunny last couple days.
Yeah,
I,
sorry I missed you last week.
yeah, no worries. And I was hoping to come out to LA this week, but I'm doing an event out there, and we're gonna do it next week. So
Awesome. Let me get into some facts about you, for my listeners, so we know who we're talking about and what we can look forward to this episode. So fact number one, you're a senior interactive producer at Google. Is
that's
that
right.
correct?
hmm
Awesome. What does that entail?
Yeah, so basically I project manage the are you still there?
Yeah, I'm just going to be
Oh,
switching
okay.
back and forth.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, so I'm a project manager for launching new hardware products under Pixel and Nest. So basically, that is taking the new hardware, like we have Pixel phones, right, or Nest, like smart home devices, and those are being developed by our, industrial design team, and they get passed over to my team when it's like heading out to then get launched to the world. And so I manage it from the design phase, and also like doing the photo shoots, those kind of things, and building out the web pages. And then we transition to actually like managing the web dev side of things, to get Google Store ready for the launch. And then usually kind of tie things up around this a time of big launch moments like Google I/O, which is in a month ish now. And yeah, then
What's the Google I/O?
yeah, Google I/O is our big spring hardware launch event. So it's like Sundar, who's the CEO, will go out and on the stage there in Mountain View and get everybody excited about the new products that are coming in the fall, or just being launched right then.
That's awesome. I did get an email recently from Google about their new AI that they're going to launch.
hmm
It's called
Yeah,
like Bradley or something.
yeah, Bard,
Bard.
Bard.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with these AI namings, but they're pretty bad for the most part. I feel like there's a
Bad
good
and
opportunity.
negative or bad as in badass?
Like I don't know, just like the names are weird. There's been just a bunch of funny, like not like the technology is amazing, but
Yeah.
the names are kind of funny. I don't know what they were like. Bard. I don't really get it, but
I think, not to get too stuck on this too much, but I think part of that would be they're just trying to name it something that's not normally named,
yeah,
like there's so many names that have been used over and over. So that's why you have like Bixby on Samsung and Siri, and I mean Amazon didn't even try. They just said Alexa. That's
yeah,
that's terrible. So we got that. You are the author of What the Fuck is Next, which you wrote with your dad,
yeah. That's
right?
right.
Which we're going to get into. You have experience in production, music promotions, digital growth, and video content production, right? Now, is
Yep.
that something you do privately, separately, or is that something also along with the Google?
Yeah. So my career has been in advertising, marketing. So it's been a bit of doing that, professionally and also on the side kind of thing. And yeah, now I'm working on a side project, that is like indie sci-fi short film, that is in this kind of new area of interactive narrative. So it's kind of like watching a TV show and then like playing a video game at the same time. So you watch like a
Nice.
short piece of content and then you have to figure out and solve that like piece, and there'll be clues inside of like the actual episode itself.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Um, you're a passionate traveler and a digital nomad for 8 years.
hmm
You're a snowboarder. Um, your book on What the Fuck is Next is a personal development guide for those who are feeling lost, which I think is it's a huge topic. Your book provides frameworks for creating a vision for the future of taking actionable steps towards achieving it, which I want to know how you do that and what are your recommendations for it?
hmm
And what other fact do we have here before we get into questions? Uh, Trying new things and taking risks, even if they don't always work out as planned. So you're a risk taker, and you
hmm
don't mind repeating that, taking those risks over and over. So let's get into our
Totally.
first question. Can you tell me more about the process you and your dad created for figuring out what the fuck is next and how it differs from other personal development frameworks out there? And also, I want to add, what the fuck is next? I love the name. You
Hmm.
know, I was there any moment where you're like, fuck, maybe I should name it "What the fuck is next" because people are going to be offended, or it's like, who gives a fuck? Like, what the fuck is next?
Yeah, exactly. I always knew that that was the title, but my dad took some convincing for sure. There's actually like a thing at the end is like his kind of acknowledgement about us picking that in the title. And there is one, it just was, it's a perfect embodiment of what we were looking to create and how we were looking to repackage, the process that he's been using for 30 years. But then also there's, serious psychological evidence that says when you drop an F-bomb, it really actually like increases your awareness and your presence in that moment, right? It works. That's why, you say, what the fuck?
Yeah,
And so it has that. It hits a bit harder. And that's the whole point of, what we're trying to do here is hit hard and get people to figure out what the fuck is next. So yeah, I can give you a little overview. And once I'm done explaining that, I'd love to hear, what the fuck is next for you, Robert, and,
yeah,
how you're thinking about it. But anyways, the process itself was developed by my dad over about 30 years of professional development and personal coaching work. Basically, he was a life coach before that was like a real thing. They didn't used to call them life coaches in the 80s, though. They called them professional development. And he then
fabulous.
developed the process and published about 7 years ago. It was called The Field Guide for What's Next. And he did so, and it was a very researched and solid process, but he did it kind of in the most like PhD dad way possible. Whereas like a bit more of just like a internal kind of research tool, and wasn't like super easy to read or utilize. But I myself used the process when he published it, and I did the process, and about 2 years later I was looking back into the process. It's a workbook that you actually fill out. And I saw that my number one intention for what was basically next for me was to travel the world and learn how to surf. And while I was reading that, I had just come back from a 2 year trip around the world and I learned how to surf. So I was like, I got chills on my body. I'm like, holy shit, like, how did that happen? Okay, wow, there's
Crazy.
something to this, Dad. All right, like, let's go. And then I used the process again, and I was like looking at this next phase after coming back from traveling to like 18 countries and being gone on the road, being a digital nomad. And I set my intention and I utilized the process again to identify that I really wanted to work at Google as like kind of the next most important step in my career. I knew I kind of wanted that pedigree and to kind of live and see what that world is like at the highest level of tech and marketing. And I've now been working for Google in various capacities for 4 years. So it's worked
What
really
an
good for
experience.
me. Yeah, exactly. So it was about 2 years ago, and we were like fly fishing, hanging out, and we had been talking about potentially like working on it together, and redoing it, and just kind of hit me. I was like, let's call it "What the fuck is next?" Like that's what it needs to be. That's like perfect, and that's now using that as kind of a driving force for the creative direction and everything. We've landed on this workbook that starts out with our analysis of how we get distracted in a modern society from what we really want. There's things like what we want is too hard to get, or, I'll be happy when I get there, that kind of thing. And so we start there, then we give his background of growing up in Ohio, getting kicked out of the house, kind of going through some like tough childhood issues, and then really utilizing an intentional path to get things on the right path, and moved to Colorado, met my mom, and has now lived like an amazing life, becoming an outdoorsman and building his own successful real estate company over the last 40 years. And then it switches to
Good for
my,
him.
yeah, yeah. And then it switches to my story, what it's like to have an intentional father, how I've used this process myself for various, things that have helped me really build out the life that I want. And then we set up the science. There's a bunch of specific scientific studies that go into why this process works. And then we start to set up people physically and mentally to take on the process, which is you first answer 21 questions in the book. The questions themselves are based in appreciative inquiry. So that is, instead of asking what you don't have and like why you haven't gotten it, you start with what do you do have? What have you been successful with already? And that is such a stronger foundation for one, identifying things that you've already been successful at that you can be successful at again. And then utilizing that to kind of focus in on then one area of your life that we then help you decide. We call that a big rock. So there's like, maybe it's finding a life partner, maybe it's traveling the world, maybe it's increasing your salary, whatever it is. And that then you use that, you focus and the answers to the questions to then fill out a workbook that helps you with a game plan for 30, 60 days that will get you started towards making progress to that what's next.
That's beautiful. Have you guys considered launching an app as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Or is there like a research? Well, you've answered the question, but I was also going to add, or have you guys done like a research that writing it? Because there's always that writing, it's more powerful, than digital or putting in your notes or something.
Totally. Yeah, that's the last point of the science. Since we were cave people, we've been expressing ourselves with our hands on the walls of the cave or, in the sand or whatever. And that has such a legacy primal element to it. And it's proven that when you write something down, you will retain the knowledge more. It'll be more impactful. And you can just, you know how it is. If you're typing a new Roman on your computer, like you forget everything, right? Like you're just doing it. You're expressing the thought, and that's very successful and effective. But if you then, write a note to somebody or like a letter or a card, like you can think back and like remember exactly what you wrote, and you can even sometimes remember like what it smelled like in the room or like what you did later that day. So super important part, and I really like that element. We do have an audiobook that then walks you through the explanation of how to do the workbook on your own, but definitely the book itself is like really well designed to make it really easy and fluid to fill it out.
That's so amazing. That's so amazing. So this has been a work in progress. Like you said, 40 years practically. 30, 40 years?
Yeah. For him, yeah. But now it'd probably be like 35. Yeah.
How do you balance building the life you want with not sacrificing your career, especially in a world where many jobs require to be in specific locations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm really liking this idea of work style, or this like naming of work style. So it definitely involves some initial intention and design. For me, I work in digital marketing, advertising, and have done that for a long time. So that's an industry and a profession that allows for serious flexibility. And I, definitely considered that when I like moved from, I was working in the office, working in advertising, and having to pull and grind for like 60 hours a week when I got out of college. But then I took on the digital marketing role, and I was like, wow, like this is a really great area because I can be in India and I can just like get anything done as long as things are getting done. Yes, sure, I might be on a call at 4 a.m, but I'm going to South Korea tomorrow, and that's like, heck yeah, I'm so down. So that's that's the initial thing. For when it comes to balancing like travel and big career stuff, I've definitely transitioned a bit to a model of work season or travel season. So like right now I'm in a big work season, basically like the beginning of the year. I'm staying put in Denver for the most part. I'll be like Denver, LA. But staying here, focusing, really setting intention to just work and get it done. And then after June, it transitions to a travel season. So I'm going to reduce some of my, kind of overall like business goal setting kind of things. And I'm transitioning that into like, I'm going to be in Mexico City for a month. I'm going to be going down to Peru, kind of like working my way down South America. And just, instead just experiencing being a lot, being able to travel, culture, surfing, hanging out, and then recharging for then the next like 6-month work season. So that's been like a really big one. That's a little different of how I used to do it. I used to just travel all the time and bounce from one place to another. But I'm liking this for getting more high level things done.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you realize how blessed you are? And have you ever compared, or has your father ever compared of how it was when he was growing up versus how you grow up, and confirmed these opportunities? Or is it just like are you super appreciative of these opportunities, or is it, what, this exists and you appreciate it, but at the same time it's like, well, I don't know why not everybody's not doing this. Like, is it a casual feeling, or is it a fucking amazing feeling?
It's a fucking amazing feeling. It is. I'm incredibly privileged to, have grown up in the way that I did with an intentional father, in the way that, that they were able to invest time into me, and to, always kind of push for like, you can do whatever you want, and like you should go and do it, but like it takes work, and, be intentional, and always like recheck in on what it is that you want in life. So yeah, no, definitely a fuck yeah. This reality is so beautiful. It's so fun, and being alive is amazing. I'd love to, utilize tools to just get the most out of this.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Let's see. What has been the most impactful lesson you've learned from traveling to 16 different countries, and how did you choose those 16 countries, and how has it shaped your approach to goal setting?
Yeah, the biggest thing is generally is the amazing anecdotes about how big and different the world is, and how different people live their lives in different countries, and just how vast and beautiful, like, the world is. Just like, for example, like being in China, they don't.
What part of China, by the way?
I was in Chengdu, mainly, for 3 weeks over Chinese New Year, which was great. But yeah, just like one anecdote to kind of how I did it. I was with my ex-partner at the time, my ex-girlfriend. We house sat. So we would apply to people online. There's a couple websites. One's called trustedhousesitters.com. I think that's the best one. And we would apply online, and they would basically be people that are looking to go back home, like usually like expats, and they had a place in, a foreign country usually with pets as well. And so they'd be like, if you guys come and look after our place, then you can stay here for free, and like use our vehicles potentially, sometimes like a motorcycle or something. And then you just really kind of like drop into living in their world and being like an actual like local.
It's wild.
Yeah. So we did a 3-week house sit in Chengdu, which is like super central China. It's in the Sichuan province, where they literally put Sichuan pepper in everything. And we were there. We were watching 2 pit bulls, which was cool. And just China, just like without being in China, it's hard to understand. But actually, the Chinese experience for me and their way that they behave was honestly reminded me a lot of Americans. It was like this most similar to Americans because of their national pride and their like insular nature of being like, when you're in China, they're like, we're China, we're the best. Like, China, fuck yeah. We're like, in America, we're like, America, fuck yeah. Like, no, we're the best. We're like, everything matters. Like, the world revolves around us. And so like to just have that totally flipped, and they're like, no, it's all about China. And that's like why they, they block Google and they block Facebook and stuff like that. And you're like, you don't really understand. You're like, that's crazy for them to do that there. But like when the tables are turned, like we're doing the same thing, right? We're like, we don't trust China. We're not going to, like, with the whole TikTok thing. And it was just like, these kind of epiphanies of just like being there. And like, definitely I don't, agree with their censorship and their like totally crazy totalitarian government stuff. But I like, you get like why they have that national pride, and they're like have the defensibility kind of thing that they have. And it's just interesting to kind of, realize those things, and you don't get that without going and being there. So that's
when I was in China, I just want to add to that. When I was in China, I was in Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and I went to Macau and Hong Kong. The first thing that I realized was it's funny how we have these opinions about other countries. Like when you travel, it's like, oh, don't go there, don't go here, don't do this. Like when we went to Dubai for the first time, my wife was like completely covered up because we heard they cut heads, and it's scary. And when we got there, that's not the case at all.
No,
like,
actually,
everybody's having fun. They don't care. It's an amazing place. But in China, the first thing that I picked up was Chinese people are really good drivers. In China, they're really good drivers. And I was like, what a fucking difference from China being great drivers to in the US not being as good drivers. And I thought it really got to me. So I started thinking about what's going on. And I even asked, a few people. And you know what the conclusion was? We have so many rules in America of, don't park here from this time to that time, towing from this time to that time, yellow, you have to slow down, but red, you have to stop, green, you better watch out. This is a yield between, like, there's so many fucking rules. And if you fuck up any of them, guess what? You're getting a $500 fine. You're getting points on your ticket. Your insurance is going to go up. And the consequences are so devastating that you have no other option, that if you don't feel comfortable, like, what's next? Is there a camera? Am I going to get pulled over? Is the cop? Why is it got like it's very nerve-wracking. So I thought that was one, they drive pretty good. Two, it's nothing like, what we see or what they say, that China is. They're not walking around like, like we hate America. They don't even care.
Yeah.
They don't even think about us.
I don't even think about it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's like,
And
it's totally capitalistic too. Like, there's like Gucci stores like everywhere. I'm like, how is there so many
Rolex,
Gucci? Yeah,
Gucci.
exactly.
I
Pizza
was in
Hut.
Hong Kong. There was like 5 Rolex stores back to
Yeah,
back, Apple stores everywhere. I
I
was like,
know.
oh my God, they don't
Yeah.
care. They don't even think about us the same way we don't think about them.
Yep.
Anyway, like that's just, but continue.
Yeah, totally. Other things just like in South Korea, going out, like South Korean people would come up and be like, because it's like pretty clearly American, they'd be like, "Oh my God, like thank you so much. Like you have no idea like how much we appreciate you." And that's because, we have a presence of I think 30,000 troops there on the holding down the North Korean South Korean border, right? And so just like they love Americans so much, and it's just like that's something that you just like never realize, like the geopolitics of how this is going on and how America is like involved, and just to really feel it and like have that kind of realization is just fascinating. And you just have to travel to kind of get those opportunities and realize them in reality.
No, those are all amazing points and recommendations of why people should travel and learn about other cultures, etc. How has this shaped your approach on goal setting? Like, what have you picked up? What have you
Yeah.
learned by being in these countries?
Hmm. Yeah. I'd say the approach with goal setting is um, set high expectations, but hold them loosely. That's like just a general, I think, good approach to life. But when it comes to traveling, like it's extra important. You think you're going to some beautiful paradise in the Philippines, but then you end up getting, situated next to like a butcher place, right? And it's like, oh shit, like this is, we have this great intention to be like on the beach and do this thing, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. I think travel can be a really good mechanic for forcing you to just be more just appreciative of like how it goes and go with the flow. So that's generally like, even if it's, if your intention is a trip, then that's great. But if your intention is to like, get a new career, like set a strong intention, but hold it loosely and kind of trust the process.
I like it. I dig it. You mentioned that you would try anything twice. Can you share a specific experience where you tried something for a second time and ended up changing your perspective on
Yeah. One of them was live squid in South Korea, actually.
it? Where it moves and they pour the stuff on
Yeah,
it? Oh my
yeah, it
God.
moves. It moves. The first
What do they put
time,
on it? Like a vinegar or something?
yeah, it's like sriracha and like rice vinegar, I think is it. Um, yeah, first time wasn't a fan of it at all. And I think it was just like, generally like the place that we went to was just like not great. And then we tried it again because it was like, let's give this a shot. Like I was with a friend that lives in Seoul. And he was like, we gotta make this work. So we took it to another spot, and yeah, it's actually really great, really unique. Would recommend giving it a go, especially if you're in South Korea.
Especially if
Um,
you're in South Korea, yeah.
yeah, another thing, this is more or less silly, I guess, is meditation and mindfulness. So my mom actually is practicing like Buddhist mindfulness person ever since I've been around. And so I grew up kind of around that, and you know how it goes with
Lucky
like,
you.
yeah, yeah. It goes like with, even though your parents are like super cool and probably like doing the right thing, as a kid you're like, I'm not into that. Like my parents are lame. So anyways, I tried to meditate with her, and I did, and it was always very difficult for me, right? Like I was always like, it is difficult. It's one of the hardest things to do, is to just sit there and watch your breath. So I kind of like never really found it authentic to me. But then I started doing breath work over the last like 6 years. And that has been a new amazing path to mindfulness, just standalone. And now I do practice, mindfulness, just sitting, watching my breath, and just basically, I took another shot at it. But sometimes it's kind of, you need another, helping hand to kind of guide you back to something that is going to be really good for you. So yeah, initially wasn't a meditator, now huge meditator.
That's amazing. I haven't gotten to that point
Hmm.
of meditation. My wife loves meditating. It definitely takes some discipline, but I believe it's super necessary.
Yeah.
I just need to, you know, The problem is our minds drive us crazy, and our minds fill us with doubts and
Hmm.
excuses, and just sometimes getting things done is a challenge. And meditating, what people don't understand is meditating will help you get things done.
Hmm.
And then I want to share my experience real quick on
Hmm.
trying something for a second time that I
Yeah,
just thought it was interesting how it changed my
totally.
perspective. The first time I went skydiving,
Mm.
I was with a good friend of mine. We met these girls. This was years ago. We
Hmm.
met these girls in San Francisco, and then the girls like, "We're going skydiving," and we're like, "All right, we're going skydiving with you." So we went from San Francisco to Santa Cruz, and then we partied on the beach,
Nice.
and then we made it to Monterey County, and then we got to Monterey, and it's early in the morning. We're eating breakfast, and we're gonna go skydiving. And we went skydiving, and it was an amazing experience. Like, holy, this is the greatest thing in the whole wide
Hmm.
world, right? Well, the second time we went skydiving, I'm like pumped because I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is the moment the plane takes off and we're going up in the air, my mind starts thinking, what the fuck am I doing? I did this already. Like I did this. I know what to expect. This is
Yeah.
dangerous. And it's like the second time was scarier than the first
Yeah.
time, because like the first time was like you don't know what to expect and you don't care about it, but the second time it's like what's going to happen,
Yeah.
what could go wrong, the consequences, and you overthink it, it's very interesting. And that's where a third time was necessary, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, and now I'm like more relaxed and breathing. But that second time, like it was an eye opener,
Yeah,
you know
totally. It's so funny how, yeah, like you had maybe buried the anxiety that first time because it was so fresh and new and you didn't know what you were really doing. And it was just like you rolled with it. And then, yeah, the second time, your mind's like, no, we know what's up here. And like, I'm going to need to be scared
yeah.
for a little bit.
Yeah, because the first time you can't really imagine everything taking its steps. Okay, a plane's gonna go up, they're gonna open a
Yeah.
door and they're gonna push us out and we're gonna fly. Like you can't completely, unless if you focus on the whole thing,
Yeah.
then you can. But the second time you're like, wait, they're gonna open the door. What the
Yeah.
anyways, I
Totally.
thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. I've actually
Uh
only been skydiving one time and my experience was similar. I think I was like grayed out, like, in my mental capacity going up on the plane. Like, I don't really even remember. I was like so like scared kind of, but like just was like, I'm just doing this and going through the motions. And so it was fine. But like, I'm sure, yeah, if
yeah,
I go again and I will, I would have a similar, maybe more scared experience this time. So you
wow,
got to
dude,
try
such a
everything
great
three
experience.
times.
Yeah, yeah, because the first time you're doing it because you've never done it. The
Hmm.
second time you're kind of evaluating and you're confirming or reconfirming what. I mean, this is not a rule. I'm kind of just throwing this at
Totally.
you with this experience. But the second time is a reconfirmation of the first time, and
Hmm.
now you're looking at what now you're more curious. At first
Hmm.
you want to be adventurous. The second time you're more curious, and then the third time you're kind of confirming everything,
Hmm.
and you can kind of like schedule it properly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's yeah, very fair. That makes a lot of sense. The third time you're like, okay, now I'm in it. Now I can like authentically decide, like, am I going to
Yeah.
keep doing this?
Now you're going to start strategizing.
Yeah.
Now the third time it's like, all right, I got this.
Hmm.
What advice would you give someone who is feeling stuck in their current situation and unsure of what's next, what next step they should be taking?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest one or the biggest, easiest thing to do to try and get yourself unstuck from figuring out what is next is that you really maybe need to dive deeper into the essence of what it is that you really want and not necessarily pay so much attention to like the more obvious upfront things. An example of that is, let's say that you have an intention to buy a new sports car or a new motorcycle, and you also have an intention to work less and spend more time with your loved ones. Now, unless at first, on paper, those two things seem like they would be impossible without somehow breaking the laws of physics. But if you dive deeper into what it is that you really want, which is probably just the freedom and the feeling of the throttle, between your legs or in the wheel in your hands, the hair, the wind blowing through your hair. And then you also maybe dive deeper into the fact that maybe it's not that you want to work less, but it's just that you want to have more time with your loved ones or your partner or whatever. And that just might require you to talk and have some more flexibility with your work. And so instead of, trying to max out your credit card to go buy this new motorcycle or something, how about instead you just go and you rent a sports car or motorcycle for the long weekend, and you talk to your boss authentically about how you want some more flexibility to work from the road. And then you will find yourself for much easier and more attainably with the wind in your hair and, your partner on the back of your motorcycle driving down the PCH, and you're actually experiencing what it is that you really want, but you didn't necessarily have to go down the paths that were seemingly impossible. So you get there. You might have to take a stop along the PCH highway and take a quick call with your boss, but at least I think, you get the point.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Are you going to be working on any other new books? When did you launch your book? And are we expecting to see newer books soon?
No. So we launched the book in January, right around the beginning of this year. And, we're really just loving having conversations about this one. It is the way that we designed it that it is very concise compared to other processes. I don't know if you're familiar with Artist Way or some other kind of processes that take, kind of months of your time. Those are great and they can be really impactful. But I think now specifically, like, we needed a tool that's a lot more concise and utilizes the least amount of time to have the maximum output. So, generally it's just talking to people about the book and walking through them, doing book clubs, that kind of thing, and just really focusing on this for this year. And yeah, we're having such a great response, and I just love talking about it and doing this process as it is by itself.
That's awesome. Talking about roughly when we first started the conversation about how you took these steps and then you were doing the things that you were doing, that's very law of attraction. And the first time I did that was years ago, where I had a general manager and he pulled us in. I worked for a TV station, a marketing company, and he pulled us into the office and he says, "Hey, by the end of the week, you have to give me your goals. You have to give me your 12-month goals. Otherwise, you're fired." Like, straight out.
Wow.
I want your goals, or otherwise you're fired. Anyway, so everybody turned it in. I'm talking about like 70 employees or something like that. We all did it. He just grabbed it, put it in an envelope. That's it. Wrote our name on it. Done. And it was amazing because 12 months later, he called us into the office and he's like, "Here's your letter." He never even looked at it.
Yeah.
At least I don't know if he did. And just to open this up and to see how many things were hit was like, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know this, but I fight it. I fight it. I'm like, I don't have time for this, or I don't need to. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm driving towards. I know what I'm focusing on. I don't need to write that, but I know the power of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It really changes it when you put it out into the universe in that, written form. It just,
do you do vision boards as well?
Yeah, I mean, I do a whiteboard for sure. Yeah. And, kind of like every month or so, I will rewrite the whiteboard, and it has more like, inspirational things, or kind of like more like time blocking things, or just general intentions about like life and wellness and work. But yeah, the scientific element of that part and that process of the law of attraction and setting intentions is that our minds and our neural networks are designed to create or to look for patterns, right? That's like the baseline, really amazing skill set that we have as humans. And so when you put a intention on paper, what you're doing is you're activating your subconscious to look for patterns around that specific thing. And if you don't do that and you don't like put it out into the universe and you apply it to your subconscious, then you're just going to be running at like half your potential. So that's what's like magically really powerful about that one step of writing it down or putting on a mirror or something like that and actually expressing it. It's just going to really lock it into your mind. And then even if you don't do anything with that for months, you will have such a stronger success rate on those like specific areas than if you wouldn't have done it.
That's so true. I had two thoughts right now that I wanted to share with you. And I just drew a blank because that was such a good point. Why do you think, I got it. Why do you think writing it down, pen or pencil on paper or whiteboard or a visual board, Why do you think it's so more effective doing it that way versus if you just put it in your notes or
Hmm.
your app, or you just kind of do it on your computer?
Yeah.
What's your thought
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, just the physical tactile element is huge. And then also there's like another one, which is if you write it down, and a thing that we highly recommend, is sharing it with other people. So, it's even like when somebody sees
Which I
my,
hear that. I'm sorry.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just the physical element, writing it down has a stronger neural locked in style of memory and of making it just a more profound kind of thought that you have. So yeah, that's just proven through being through writing and through our process of evolution. But yeah, then also if you write it down and you then set a time to necessarily share it with somebody else, then that like makes it so much more real, right? Have an accountability buddy kind of thing, really really changes it. Or not even that, just literally expressing it out loud can have equally powerful aspects.
That's interesting that you say that. I had a guest a few months ago, very successful. He's like the number three most successful Hispanic actor in the world right now.
Mm,
And he was talking
cool.
about confirmation and saying things out loud, and say
Mm-hmm.
your goals and let the world know, like, I'm gonna fucking win this Grammy, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
win this award, I'm gonna make the best show, I'm gonna make the
Yeah.
best movie. Say it out loud. And it's interesting because I've kind of been guided to not say anything because
Mm-hmm.
people hate. People will be like, no, yeah, like, they'll wish bad thoughts on you, or they'll be like, you can't do it behind your back. So it's interesting that you're confirming to say it out loud. My last question for
Mm-hmm.
you would be, what about and this is just kind of it's not a curveball, but because you're into mindfulness and spiritual and planning and law of attraction, what's your nutrition like?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah, so I have now started my day with athletic greens. Definitely a big fan. I don't know if you're on that. Obviously, the seems to be the kind of major trend for lots of people that are interested in that kind of
athletic greens?
physical wellness performance.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I'm a big faster, so I love to fast kind of deep into the day. I will go within a protein shake with mushroom adaptogens, collagen, and like a blend of other kind of vitamins, etc. And then I'll fast
Nice.
pretty deep, and I like that heavy protein diet. And then I'll have like one super nutrient rich, like grain. I love to do bone broth quinoa with like the kale salad and some like level of protein, and just have like a huge carbo load at night. And like to keep that regiment like pretty much 5-6 days a week, and then I'll go out and just have a cheat day. But loving that, just simple food, kind of for fuel during the day, and then just totally just going with like this really elaborate, just like throw it all in there, get the marinated beets in there, get the asparagus in there,
Good for
and
you.
some heavy protein, and try and just eat lots of protein. I figured out, for me, it's all about low carb, shitloads of protein, and then I feel the
Yeah.
best and have the best like muscle development kind of thing. And yeah, and then I'm like a 3-day weightlifting, and then every other day doing some sort of cardio, whether it's yoga, going on a run, or going on a hike, or going snowboarding, or going motorcycle
that,
riding.
that is awesome. What are you riding?
Yeah, so I don't have a bike right now, but when I was living in California in Santa Cruz, actually, I had a 1985 Honda Nighthawk 450, so
Nice.
nothing crazy, but
I my my,
cool
my first
vintage.
bike, my first bike was a Nighthawk when I lived in Santa Cruz.
Nice. No
I, li-
way.
I lived, yeah, I swear to God. I swear
Sick.
to God, I was living in Santa Cruz at the time, and I went. I had a friend of mine in San Francisco, and they had a Nighthawk. It was like an '85 or '86 or something
Cool.
like that, rusted as fuck. And I picked it up. I was young back then, and I towed it back to Santa Cruz and started working on it. And then I would
Sick.
ride it. I was working in Monterey, and yeah,
Cool.
I love the Central Coast. Love that area.
Yeah, totally. I
Did
lived
you
in
go to
Santa Cruz.
UCSC?
No, I went to University of Colorado, but then I moved after traveling for those 2 years with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and she got a job at Giro, which is like up there in the mountains, and I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
able to work remote. So yeah, I moved out there, lived on Pleasure Point for like 4 years,
Nice.
and had the motorcycle. Oh man, motorcycle riding through the Santa Cruz mountains. Come
It's
on.
golden.
Oh,
Come on, man.
the
It's the
smell,
greatest thing in the world.
the fog, the trees. Oh, it's so beautiful. I can't
Yeah,
wait to get
yeah.
back out there, and do some of that. Yeah, I actually used to take the Highway 17 on like
Yeah, yeah. To
Nighthawk.
San Jose.
Yeah,
Yeah, on
to
the night. Yeah.
Mountain View. And that was always interesting because it didn't have a whole
That's
lot of
badass.
juice. So, but yeah, it's super fun. And yeah, one of my favorite things I was really excited, to get on this show is because one of my favorite things in the world is driving a motorcycle in a foreign country. Just nothing
You're
beats
right.
it. You know what I mean? Just I've done that in the Philippines, Sri Lanka, India, Costa Rica. Um, it's nothing like it. Nothing like that level of freedom.
Colton, that's badass, man. Let's stay in touch. I'll be honest, I haven't checked out the book yet, but after this conversation, I'm super pumped about it. So I'm gonna download it or buy it right now. What's your
Cool.
website? What's your contact information? How can people find you? Can you hear me?
Yep, totally. So the book is available at thefisnext.com. It's the easiest way, probably. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, cool,
So
cool.
that's the
Yeah,
what's the website?
yep,
Instagram, email.
yep. So the site is thefisnext.com. And it's also just available on Amazon. So if you just search "What the fuck is next," should pop up for you in your Amazon. And then I'm just the Colt on Instagram. THECOLT. And yeah, the website's the best place to reach out. Yeah. But yeah, before we wrap up, Robert, I'd love to hear what's next? And is there anything you're doing to make that happen this year?
Yeah, what's next is I got a few things. This is going to be episode 111. I'm trying to get to 200 episodes by the end of the year. Right now, the podcast is top 5% most shared podcasts
Cool.
on Spotify, which is very exciting. So I want to get that even higher. The next thing is
Nice.
I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I am in the process of buying a sports bike, and I want to start motorcycle racing, as well as I want to pick up a sprinter van and do podcasts on the
Cool.
track while racing. So, and then focus on my kids.
Oh,
Focus
dope.
on my kids. Yeah, I just got my little 4-year-old into soccer. He just turned 4 January, and his first week was last Saturday, and he fucking loves it. The score was 4-1, and he made all 4 goals, and he's killing it.
Sick.
And the feedback, everybody's really excited. So it's my children, my podcast, and the motorcycle racing is going to be the biggest thing. Well, my son's soccer is going to be the biggest thing, but the motorcycle thing is going to be awesome. You know, so that's kind of where I'm at. No,
Hey,
not
can you hear
sure if
me?
we lost. Yeah, it looks like it froze up for a second.
Okay. Yep. But sick, man. I love that idea of the Sprinter Van podcast studio out on the track. That's dope.
Well, imagine it's the Ride Boundless Podcast, riding boundless. Like,
So boundless.
like
Got
that's
it.
So, and then with all the craziness in LA, I wouldn't mind having a bug out van.
Totally.
So anyways, that's what I'm working on. The only thing I'm contemplating on, do I sacrifice a few motorcycles to make this
Mm-hmm.
happen? What you
Mm-hmm.
were talking about with the example, do I drown myself in a little bit more debt, or do I get myself out of debt and purchase? It'd be kind of like a wash. Do I take
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of bikes and trade it for a bike and a van, or do I pick up a little bit of debt and just fuck it and rock with it? So, and that also depends on how kick ass I want the van to be,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
For me, life is a series of phases. So I like to kind of re recoalesce potentially like funds and resources and invest them into the next thing as opposed to holding on to too much, so that I can finally actually get the thing that I want. And yes, it'll be less full, so you don't have every bike, but that new journey, that new opportunity with the van seems like so fruitful for many more bikes to
yeah,
come. If you're willing to take the hit initially, I think it's the move.
yeah, no, 100%. I do have what you're saying makes 100% sense, and you can't go wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have this one little drive of, if I want something, the answer is make more money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it is. It's just like, oh, I want some more toys. Well, guess what? Let me work a little harder and make more
Mm-hmm.
money. Because making more money, it seems like it makes things easier. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the answer to everything, and it depends on the life. But like, if you're living in LA and paying the expenses of living in LA, you have no other choice but to make more money
Mm-hmm.
or get the fuck out. That's just
Yeah.
what it comes down to. So, that's always been a driving factor. And I like that. I
Mm-hmm.
suffer a little bit, but then I always tell people like suffering, so,
Yep.
which is silly. It's silly, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, that's why you get so much crazy things out of LA, because it's the rat race for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
it truly is.
yeah, and that's why I think, the
But
work
but
season
but
thing.
you
Go ahead.
yeah, but the thing is too, it's you can write this down and compare it, and it's like, okay, it's a type of rat race, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But number one, you have these opportunities that if they do come through, they're going to be bigger than anywhere else.
Yeah, totally.
That's number one. Number two, we got to understand that the chances of that are very slim, and there's a chances that it never happens. Okay, that's acceptable. But then when you start getting into climate, and you look at, well, you pay this much to live in a state that you have, except for this year for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
but you have like riding weather. Like I can ride a motorcycle usually
Mm-hmm.
11 months out of the year, where you compare that to other states where there's heavy snow or heavy weather conditions or
Mm-hmm.
tornadoes or all that stuff. 3-4 months out of the year, your motorcycle or your fun outside activities is going to be limited, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be non-existent. And then it's like, well, if you're living this non-existent fun adventure life, then how much freedom is that compared to suffering with your bills out here, but every
Yeah.
day you can go to the beach and put your feet in the sand? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. It's funny. It's back to, is the cup half full or half empty? And I guess the real answer is, how long can you hold the cup for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the key thing that is not mentioned in to get the things that I want, I need to make more money. But to then use the things that you want and to do them, you need to have more time, and you can't make more time. So
Right.
it's an important thing to remember, while your head's down. All right, I got to make more money, so I'm gonna work 60 hours this week, and then I'm gonna get this van and go on this thing or whatever, go on this trip. But who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? So you might never have the time to actually do it. So it's just, finding that really delicate balance of making, success and resource of yourself by using your work, if it's not exactly like, if your work isn't exactly what you love to do. And then, but not pushing it too far down the road, because it's not, once you get there, you'll be happy. It's the journey that counts. So making sure the journey
Yeah.
is as good as it can be, and not sacrificing too much in the day to day for some future thing that you're not sure will manifest itself in the way that you have in your mind.
And then, I make a lot of these points on the podcast with other guests, and you're right. The one thing that has to be clarified is, when I'm saying these things, I'm saying it because of my current situation
Yep.
and in my position.
Mm-hmm.
What works hard or work more for me is to do more podcasts, look for
Mm-hmm.
more sponsorship. It's stuff that I like.
Yeah, exactly.
It's stuff that I like that's a little daunting. But
Mm-hmm.
you're right. This isn't a copy paste tool for everybody, because
Yep.
people are really stuck in a 9 to 5 job, 5 days a week, 5 days a week, an hour to get to work, an hour to get back to work. And I heard this example that the best moment of their day is when they have to take a shit at work and get to look at their social media posts and catch up and see what their friends are doing. And that's fucked up.
It's fucked up.
That's really fucked up. And yes, if you're going to continue getting in debt to have like a little bit better of a weekend instead of trying to get out of the rat race, you're
Mm-hmm.
right. So I do have to be careful with that, because you're right. Like I in my situation,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be like, oh, I just got to make more money. I gotta make 10 more phone calls.
Yeah,
I gotta
exactly.
go to 2 more meetings a week. Like, it's not, I'm still going to have my fun. And I've been
Exactly.
blessed, like you have been
Mm-hmm.
blessed, that
Mm-hmm.
we've learned this,
Yep,
that we've learned
exactly.
this.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely, yeah. There's like, I take on more projects, but they're usually just like also mind-blowingly amazing and fulfilling. So
Yeah.
at this point, yeah, it's totally a very privileged thing to have. But yeah, so it's a lucky spot to be in. So
Colton, it's a true pleasure. I do want to ask one more thing.
hmm
How old are you?
31.
31. So,
Yeah.
man, I like amazing to be that age and to be thinking and accomplish what you accomplished is amazing. Congratulations to you, to your father, to your book, and to your success, and just your mindset. You're doing big things. Whenever you're in California, please let me know, especially if you're in LA. We'll do another run and have some fun, and we'll talk more about motorcycles
Heck
and
yeah.
life.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Robert. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Colton.
Cool.
Till next time, brother.